good words that you mentioned about our accomplishment of soft landing on the moon. And I'm sure this is a result of the tapasya of hundreds, thousands of the people in the organization who worked many years, right from 2007 onwards in the Chandrayaan program, finally accomplishing that soft landing on the moon. Today, when I need to speak to those management experts, chief executives of companies, etc., so I thought that it's very important that I speak about the emerging space sector in India and what it opens out to the whole nation, to the world, and how we can capitalize on it, and also look at the vision of our Honorable Prime Minister in expanding space sector substantially bigger than that is presently today in terms of the overall outlay, in terms of the type of work we do in this country, and how to bring in more entrepreneurs into it to work out the business side of the space in a greater manner than that has been done in the past. I first talk about the accomplishment in some numbers, because numbers are something that you will all remember in terms of the accomplishment, the total missions or the satellites that we launched for other nations, 424 satellites, the number of satellites that we have in space today, almost 50 plus satellites right now serving in various capacities. We also developed missions which are R&D in nature. We operate currently 4 rockets, which is very unheard of in any agency to have so many different types of rockets. Some of them we need to retire, of course, but then we are trying to develop newer rockets in the future. And also we look at different verticals in this organization, ISRO, Department of Space. We look at developing rockets, developing satellites, developing applications based on satellite services. Also work with capacity building in terms of training people, developing in across the ISRO as well as other organizations in this country. We also work on the Gaganyaan program, the human spaceflight program. So one of the characteristics of this organization is to work from end-to-end capability. We are not just a launch provider or a designer of a rocket or a designer of a satellite and then put it there and then forget about it, somebody else to make use of it. No. In this country, there are no industries who are capable of developing rockets by themselves. There are no R&D establishment in space research in this country outside the governmental system, unlike many other nations. And if you are to depend on high technology in this sector, it has to be done inside, within the organization. So if you look at the satellites or rockets, everything is done internally. It's done by the people within the organization. Design of it, configuring systems and engineering systems, softwares, planning, algorithms, everything is done inside. But we made sure that the manufacturing don't take place inside. We connected with the industries in this country, and most of the things, almost 80+% of the work in the satellites or rockets are done in the industries. So this is a very important aspect. We started doing it when we started doing the SLV3 program in 1970s itself. And because of that, there is a good set of industries, maybe 300, 400 of them, who are supporting us in developing, manufacturing, building systems for our space program. Possibly you are aware of the space sector reforms that happened recently. Government announced space sector reforms in 2020 and also created new organizations called InSpace, which is with a mandate of developing private space actors in this nation. Though there are industries who are building space systems, building rockets, building some parts, structures, electronics, but there is no end-to-end capability in industries to manufacture satellites, build rockets, or deploy applications of scale, which is necessary. But it's very important that we develop and support private actors in this area to come up. So InSpace is mandated to do that, whereas ISRO is mandated to do the research and transfer the research outcome to industries. I think this is a different mandate. Earlier, we were told that you research, which is very secretive, very strategic, you keep it with you, don't give to anybody. Today, the whole narrative has changed. Now we say that the public funded research is for the public and it is available to each one of you. Whoever is willing to take this technology, want to convert it into a business opportunity, it's available from ISRO to you over a license. And NSIL, as a public sector undertaking, is responsible to take up the commercial activities. And they are supposed to raise funds, they are supposed to create demand aggregation, do business, take the technology and transfer it and make money out of it. So the mandates have changed, and we are trying to create this change of understanding within the organization as well as outside the country to tell people that it is now it's open. It's no longer a secretive organization. We are no longer containing everything within ourselves. It is available to the public industries for you to make business out of it. And we look at how the past where the governmental funding has been the only way we were running the organization. Now we are looking at how we can bring in new investment in this from FDI. We are also looking at the private investment to come forward to create more capabilities, especially in the commercial domain. For example, communication domain. Can private companies build satellites and launch on their own? It was not possible till last year. Now it is all possible. We are going to give them licenses to build satellites on their own, and they can be done outside ISRO. It can be launched using ISRO satellites, or we can go and launch somewhere else and provide services over India. And this is a very huge, it's a great opportunity. Similarly, for Earth observation and various other activities, now it's open to private. And we make sure the connect between ISRO and this private organization who want to work in space is really there. And the new business opportunities which are going to emerge in space sector is something that you need to study. I think I advise you to go through the possibilities, and then maybe some of you will be interested to work on it in the future. We see that the earlier approach of ISRO getting money from government, doing designs, giving to some secondary contractor or subcontractor to build the whole system is going to change now. The business possibility of space is going to be worked out in a private-public partnership model. And we are working out these models. We are in discussion with various consultants to generate these models, which will be best suited for space sector. Only then we can really increase the economy of space activity in this country from the current level of say $7 billion to something like $50 billion, which is significant part of the overall space economy that is present in the world. And for this, we have various elements in place. Now the InSpace as an organization, the space policy that we have released in 2023, also the FDA policy which is currently being worked out, and we are also working on PPP models which will help you to go to this arrangement. Of course, our rockets are well known to you. I think I don't want to spend time on it. And the technologies that we have developed are also well known to you in terms of the rockets, the engines. The key of propulsion is something that we have been very cautiously working on, and it's a very important strategic capability for the nation. And many of you may be knowing that these engines are manufactured in private sector today. Godrej does it, L&T does it, there are Walchandnagar Industries does it, and there are many, many other companies who are contributing to the manufacturing of those engines, which are very, very critical technology. And I would like to thank all those industries who are helping us to manufacture all of them. But the fundamental research on this happens only in ISRO. Currently, the industries are not capable of doing basic research on material science, manufacturing technologies, calibration, fluid flow, etc., to a level that they can design themselves. And it's our desire that industries come up to do it in the future. Recent past, we have done fantastic missions. Just mentioned about the OneWeb mission. I think possibly you know the global conflict that is present today gave us an opportunity to launch OneWeb satellites. And when they approached us, it was a very challenging mission. And to deploy 32 satellites in a single mission at different orientation, we had to do a lot of modification in the rocket, design new algorithms, design new softwares and mechanisms to do this. And I'm very happy our people within just 1 or 2 months re-engineered the entire rocket to enable this launch to happen. I think the company, the OneWeb company itself, was surprised to see how a new rocket is able to do such a complex mission very successfully in the first attempt. And they said they were very happy to launch in the second attempt as well. And now they are telling, we are happy to come to you to launch the future generation of OneWeb satellites, and we are eagerly waiting for more contracts to come from them. I think this is something very, very interesting. We also did recently commercial missions for Singapore. 2 such missions for the PSLV were for user-funded commercial missions. The SSLV launch is very important. I think you are aware of the SSLV, which is a small rocket, but it costs only 1/10 of the PSLV. So we are able to launch half the payload with 1/10 the cost. So we brought in cost effectiveness in the whole design, which is going to be transferred to industries, and we want private people to come and take on the knowledge of this rocket and do. And we have recently issued an expression of interest for private people to come, understand the rocket and do it themselves. So we have made a kit for you for building rockets now in India. Currently we have 53 satellites for communication, earth observation, navigation, etc. And this is just not enough for the nation. We realize that for a country like India, we need 500 satellites, not 50 satellites. If you compare with our competitors or nations which are similar intent or world view, their number of satellites need to be not of this class. It has to be 10 times. If you have to really make it 10 times, then we need to create a opportunity around that 10 times satellites. Could be strategic, it could be business, it could be the communication, it could be Earth observation and navigation, and it could be signal intelligence, it could be traffic management, it could be IoT. I think many areas we need to create newer capabilities satellites. I think this is the opportunity that is available to us. We have created technology growth over the period of time. I would like to tell you that the technology growth today in India in spacecraft design and manufacturing is really fantastic. I think many of you may not be exposed to the capability that we have in the organization. And we are able to design every item that flies in our satellites and rockets within the country. Recently, I want to tell you, the instruments that we flew on Chandrayaan-3, we subjected to review to experts from USA, NASA. They came here, Jet Propulsion Laboratory, they reviewed my Chandrayaan mission before the actual landing, just to get confidence of launching it. After listening to us, understanding our work, they were really appreciative of the work that we did. And they said, to design and develop such instruments in India at this cost is unheard of, and they want some of them to be purchased by USA. I think this is the type of the comments that they are able to give us. So it shows that it is possible for high-end instrumentation systems to be designed and developed within India. Of course, we face a huge challenge in terms of sourcing components. You know that electronics, chips, detectors, memories, many of them are imported. I think this remains as a major issue today. And many of the latest of the devices which are designed in the US are not accessible to our companies. So it's our endeavor. We have been working with the US to see how to ease the import restrictions within US companies and Indian companies. Don't give to ISRO. We are not necessarily telling you give to ISRO, but give to Indian companies. If Indian companies are enabled to access the latest of the technologies that US is developing, we will be able to make a better design in India than they could do it in US. I think this is something that we did tell them. Another important issue that we have been addressing is to help the government to do better governance through space enabled. And there is a lot of opportunity here. I think I want to tell you that the data that is coming from space is actually the wealth of the future. If you can work on the data and you can create sense out of the data, creating the image-based data or time-based data, navigation data, the communication data, the high bandwidth data, if you can synthesize this data and provide services to the government, services to the public, there is a huge business opportunity. For example, I'll tell you climate and weather. It's such a great service that is not being exploited in this country in a commercial basis. You know, IMD gives out you some weather data every day. And I know many of you are not even looking at it because you are not very sure about it. See, if somebody can provide a weather services on your mobile, on a local-based services, you will be dependent on it. In the morning when you get up, you will look at your mobile, what's the climate around my house, around the playground, around my school. If you can get it, you will source it, you will pay for it. And this is an opportunity that if you can, through the space. It's similarly, you can use your fleet tracking, you can find out how to traffic congestions are there, you get update on space-based so much of services. There is a huge opportunity with the data services. I think this is something that Indian companies need to exploit. Applications is a major area we have been working at, and most of these applications we work with the government departments, ministries, state governments for helping them for natural resource mapping, agriculture, weather forecasting, disaster management, resources management, water, etc., etc. So this is something well known to many of you, so I don't spend time on it. Another important thing which I want to tell you is our work with industries. We have been working with a large number of industries in this country, also work with startups, academia, and we also collaborate with the laboratories across this nation. It's not ISRO alone doing everything. I think possibly you know that we have connected with the CSIR laboratories, we are connected with the Department of Science and Technology institutions. And many of the research work we do are funded through these institutions, funded by ISRO in these institutions. And many of the instruments that we use are sourced from these institutions, and knowledge also is sourced from them. And the work in industry is really fantastic. And many of the industries are working for us not for profit. I think this is something that you should all realize. Industries work for ISRO because they get pride out of it. And their capability in engineering capability actually gets scaled up once they start working with ISRO. And many of them told me this. For example, even companies like L&T, they say they get benefited being a partner of ISRO because they started working on our rocket motor case and they learned the technique of managing high-strength steels, their welding, their manufacturing processes. Because of that, they are able to do much bigger business outside. So there is a secondary benefit coming out of working with ISRO. And many of the technologies that we have developed is through this partnership, not as a profit model that has been beneficial to the industry. We realize that strategic applications space is very important, and we are working in various ways. I don't want to explain this slide too much to you, but I can tell you in the coming days, strategic element in space is going to be very important, though it's civilian or military. NAVIC just mentioned that NAVIC chip is now slowly coming into many devices. NAVIC enabled mobile phones and other devices will slowly happen. Why it didn't happen in the past is a story which I don't want to explain. But we have made the necessary changes in the current NAVIC configuration, like introducing new bands called L1 band. Those who know the frequencies, you will realize. Earlier we had only L5 and S band. Now we have an L1 band, which enables Apple to put it in the mobile phone. It happened only because of the recent launches. And we are going to expand it in the future to make sure that we give high quality, high accuracy navigation services better than GPS within Indian continent. That's the goal that we have. We also are helping SatSure, companies like SatSure, Vasundhara, and many other companies, Pixel. These are all satellite companies, satellite imaging business making companies who got incubated, who got help from ISRO to become very big companies today. Vasundhara and SatSure are doing a lot of image-based analytics measurements. Pixel is a company who built their own satellites and going to have a constellation to service many domains. And I would like to tell you that there are new startups and companies coming up in space sector with the capability to use space-based data and then expand them. Same is the case for rocket companies. I think these names are well known to you, Skyroot and Agnikul. I am sure about it. Many of you may be knowing. And they have been trying to develop rockets. Currently, they are trying to develop only small rockets. Of course, this will not replace PSLV or GSLV Mark III. But it only shows that young people with that desire to develop new rockets and engines are there in this country, and they are getting headlines and accolades for all their work in this area. But of course, it will take some time for them to mature to a level. And the secret is that ISRO is supporting them, and we are not a competitor to these people. And we make sure that we don't be a competitor, and it is a complementary role that we are playing. Some of the launches that happened, the Skyroot launch, a suborbital launch happened. We had an engine test. Agnikul tested their engine in our facility. And we helped them to test their engine and understand. Many of the satellites that the Pixel, Dhruva and all built, in fact, I personally reviewed the design of the satellite to make sure that they become successful. And this is the different model that we are talking. The national agency become a partner for the private, and we are not competitors, and we want them to succeed. And this is a model that we want to emulate. But we continue to face challenges in various domains in ISRO, especially electronics. I think electronics continue to be a major domain where delays and long gestation periods and manufacturing challenges are created because of the availability of these items. Like composites is another big area. And many special materials that we are using in rockets are still, some of them in very small quantities are imported. I think possibly you know that the steels, aluminum, titanium, magnesium, copper, all that is required for rockets are built in India. All high quality materials are built in India. This is something that you must be all proud of. But we still have difficulties in high-end materials. For example, ceramics, sometimes in composites and sometimes in high integrated chips. We look at how to boost the economy of space sector, and we would like you industry people to come into space sector. See how Elon Musk is there in space. We would like to have somebody like that in India to come up. And it's not easy. It's very easy to say, okay, we should create a new Elon Musk here. But then it is not an easy task. One thing that you need to have is a passion, personal passion to work in space. Otherwise, it is not going to be successful. Second is, it is an unforgiving domain that you will face failures. You will face huge challenges. You must have backup to sustain the failures and those challenges. And you should also have a mechanism by which the whole work that you are doing can be converted into a business opportunity. So here, our advice is that you start on application area. Those industries who want to work in space, first create the strong base in applications where there is a huge business. For example, ground equipments manufacturing. Today, you know, most of the satellite-based equipments which are used for ground are imported. It's not made in India. And like you know, the towers, the mobile phone towers, the 4G, 6G, 5G tower and equipments are all imported. It's not made in India. Slowly, things are changing. But we would like to see the space-based services equipments are manufactured in India, and it's a huge market. And we need companies to work on it. We need companies to work on data exploitation. We need companies to work on high throughput data communication networks. And once you consolidate that position and create business there, then you can scale up to building satellites. And once you have enough of satellites are built, then you can scale up to build rockets. But if you start in the reverse direction, business cannot be defined at this moment very confidently. We have been working with industries to make sure substantial work of the manufacturing happens in industry. So I just shown some fabrication percentages, which is very, very important for us. And we have been working to make sure that much of the work is done in industries, and there is a huge benefit out of it. We are looking at how we can transfer much of the technologies and knowledge in ISRO to industries. We have been successful in transferring PSLV production to a consortia led by HAL and L&T. They are going to launch next year. We are transferring the SSLV production technology to industries, for which we have EOI has been invited. The satellite bus technology has already been transferred to 6 companies, and they are already building those satellites. And in the future, whatever rockets that we have, we are ready to transfer the knowledge to industries, and we are only seeking they should be willing to take it, and they should be willing to spend their effort and money to build it in India. And we not only we are transferring the rockets which we have already designed, we would like to make sure that the future rockets are built not by ISRO, by the consortia of private companies and ISRO. I think this is a new model we would like to bring in, and we are also planning to build our future constellation satellites along with the users and industries. And for which we are in discussion with many companies, industries. My consultants are talking to industries to make sure they are on board in the whole effort. Another interesting thing is about the Gaganyaan. Possibly you know the human space flight is another interesting challenge coming in front of us after the soft landing of moon. And the next question I face every year is, what is new in ISRO? I would like to tell you it's a goal of sending an Indian to space and bring him back safely, for which we are currently working very hard. And it's a complex engineering problem of putting a few people inside and taking them up in the space and bring them back safely is a very complex problem. And we face huge challenges in terms of engineering. And I want to tell you, there is no help from anybody. This area, you don't get technology, you don't get help. What I get is some literature and some discussion topics and points which I can understand. And we have to engineer everything around that experience. And none of us in ISRO has any experience of flying human beings. Of course, US or Russia never had it before they flew the first human being. But today, we have to work it on this with a very limited budget on how to make this possible. And we are on it. And I want to tell you, we are going to have a very interesting mission called Crew Escape System Test Mission next month. And this October, we are going to launch it with the crew module, the crew escape system going up. And we will show that it can be recovered in case of an emergency developing in the rocket. And this is the first test that we are going to happen, and this will continue next year or so to make our mission successful. The bigger challenge is how to keep the astronauts inside very safe, for which we need environmental control and life support system. He has to be supplied with oxygen, the carbon dioxide should be removed, his temperature should be controlled, he should be fed with water, his humidity control, fire suppression, emergency handling, communication, his health and parameter measurements, his wastage disposal. All this comes under this, and we do not have any technology in India to design and develop this. And we are working, in addition to rocket science, these things within ISRO today. We were asked to design it, though we have no experience of doing it, and we are doing it ourselves because there is nobody else available to do it in India. We try to get it from outside the country, but it's not forthcoming, I must tell you, because it's not easily available. So these are the type of challenges that we face when we talk about human space flight. And it has to be done in short periods of time with a very limited budget. And it's something which is very challenging for us, but we are very interested to work on it. And not only that we make human spaceflight possible, we should definitely look at how to make it a continuing program to have human presence in space, Indian presence in space in various ways. Because we see a business opportunity, a technology opportunity, and for a growing nation like us, we need to have space stations, we need to have processing capability of material, we must have research facilities outside the space because it is important for the future. And we are telling government, telling that it is important that we need funding for it, and possible long-term vision has to be created for making this to happen. Of course, Chandrayaan 1 and Chandrayaan 3 are well aware of it. The Aditya mission is all, you are aware of it, and we are very happy. The science missions of what ISRO is going on with a very limited budget. It is not a primary track that we are working on. Our primary track is developing rockets and launching the commercial missions for communication remote sensing. But parallelly with the available resources and available time, we have been doing missions like Chandrayaan-1, Aditya L1, etc. I think very small team work on it over long periods of time to make such missions possible. That's why it is cost effective. We make sure that this work continues, and whatever research we are getting, it actually feeds into our operational missions, so our missions become more autonomous, better softwares, high reliability comes into our missions. That's why we had the Chandrayaan-1 landing, Chandrayaan-3 landing, and I'm very happy that this time, after 4 years of hard work, after the last attempt, we were able to have this image coming from moon. It's not an image, it's like 3D rendering, so don't think that is a real image. The Aditya L1 mission is something that is on the way to the Lagrangian point. This is very critical mission because we are traveling from Earth to 1.5 million kilometers away over a period of 100 days plus. And this travel has to be so precise. If you go slightly bit error, it will escape L1 point. And we are tracking it correctly now. We are hoping that we will be able to capture it into the L1 so that we can study the sun for a long periods of time. Very interesting payloads are developed. I am not going to get into the technical aspect of it because that's not the purpose of it. We continue to work on science missions. Many missions are in the offing. Mission to Venus. We want to study the Earth atmosphere. We would like to jointly work with various other nations like USA, Japan, etc. And we are also working with so many institutions in this country to create the talent pool in science. ISRO is only builder of the system, but to generate science outcome out of it, we need laboratories in this country, universities, institutions to have great scientists who will make sense out of the data. So this is another big work that we are doing in the background. Possibly you may not know this activity. We continuously interact with academic institutions like IITs, ISRs, research laboratories in this country to create that talent pool. We also collaborate with most of the nations in the world. We have 60 plus MOUs and understandings to work with various nations, and also we work with collaborative programs with most of the nations. So this is something that we continue to work with. We also look at how we can expand the economy. As I mentioned here, I am not going to spend time on it. As I told, there are a huge amount of business opportunity opening up in the space sector. And if you work out with the private entrepreneurs in creating business in space, of course, our scale of our space activity can be substantially increased. And it is not possible for governments to fund all these programs in the future. We make sure that by 2047, when we reach our Amritkal, the share of our economy in space will be substantially higher. And it will come out of the secondary and tertiary effects in space, not by building rockets or satellites, but by building applications, services, manufacturing in India. For this, we are creating the right ecosystem, and we make sure that we become a preferred destination for manufacturing of space system and preferred destination for services from space. Thank you so much. That's all I wanted to tell you.